Hello. For week 11, we're going to talk about school choice. So my context with school choice, I grew up in a small rural community, farming community, just below Cleveland, Ohio. So pretty close to the big city, but just outside enough to where it was a very rural community. I went to a very small elementary, which had 16 students in my kindergarten class, 3 boys and 13 girls. 13 of us ended up graduating together, so we were tight-knit all the way through school. And when I went to school, school choice wasn't even a mention. It wasn't something that was in my community. Everyone attended public school. So fast forward to 2017, and I have a daughter of my own who is getting ready to go into kindergarten. She is very tenderhearted, quiet, smart, and I really was concerned about how she would do in public school. I was always an advocate for public school. I grew up in public school. I teach in public schools. But when it came to my own child, I wondered if that was the best option for her. So we researched a couple schools in the community, one being Community Baptist, and another one that was a private school. And just in conversations and a lot of thought, we decided to go ahead and enroll her in public school. Luckily, we are districted for Central Elementary, which is number 6 in the state for growth. So I was very confident that she would get what she needed. As far as education, I was more concerned with her socio-emotional needs being met. So ended up having a great year for her. Her teacher was so caring and loving and created a wonderful environment. So now she's in first grade, and she's excelling and doing well. The dynamics of the school have changed quite a bit this year with another school in our district closing. So there was an influx of about 100 new students, and those students came from a very low performing school. Many of them are very poor. Most of those students qualified for free and reduced lunch. So her entire school now is under the CEP program, so everyone gets free breakfast and lunch every day. So that has really impacted the resources needed for the school. Her teacher asks usually once a month for donations of snacks, school items, things like that. And recently my daughter participated in a book project. So we spent, $3 or $4 on a pumpkin and colored it, and she read a book and did a project. And I was very surprised when we went for her presentation that only 9 of the students out of the 21 completed the project. So that gave me a really valuable insight to the other types of students that she is now with. And it's just it's sad, that those students have, no access to resources and live in poverty. And so we try to support the school as much as possible. So getting into the reading, school choice began with charter legislation in 1991. And now we have, 40 some states, allowing school choice. And then in Wisconsin, the first school voucher program began. And I found it interesting that it was supported, in a bipartisan way, which oftentimes these are very political. From my research on our Topic 2 paper, I did note that statistically, scores are indistinguishable from public schools and charter schools and voucher programs. And Peterson notes in his book, John White, a professor from the University of Wisconsin, evaluated the initiative and concluded that parents love their schools, but student learning had not improved. So even though the data clearly shows a little difference in terms of student achievement between charter, public, private schools, special interest groups, political figures, education reform groups all seem to have something to say about it. In 2012, Tom Tillis and some other lawmakers were flown to Florida on a trip coined as Learning About Florida's Tax Credit Scholarship by the interest group Parents for Educational Freedom in North Carolina, which paid for the trip. And then interestingly enough, the Florida tax credit allowed public school funds to be used for vouchers for students to attend private schools. So from that trip, the next year in 2013, North Carolina legislation enacted the voucher program to allow 2,400 students to receive an opportunity to attend the school of their choice. So there is definitely a correlation to between these groups who are advocates of school choice and how they use their money and influence for politicians to enact laws and policies. And then I did also note that that same group, Parents for Educational Freedom in North Carolina, created the PSA using Antoine Jameson, a former NBA star, and it was interesting why they would choose him because, one, he's African American, and in the quick PSA, he noted how students struggle and many drop out, and he alluded that private schools were the answer to getting students to graduate. So these groups are very smart. They definitely know their target groups, and just like with, alcohol and cigarette companies, they use media, social media to target those specific groups. And then Peterson also noted that it's not difficult to find flaws and limitations when we talk about school choice and the research of it. We're dealing with humans, and we can't create the exact same two situations in different classrooms. For me, when we remove students from the classroom, you have a certain set of students left. And so, the research, I don't know if it ever can be explicit and on point because every classroom is going to be different. So I was thinking, what are some solutions? Because, I do believe that, parents should have a choice. I do believe that every child is, should get the best education available to them. And I don't know if charter schools and private schools and using vouchers are the answer, because being in the public school, I have seen money taken away constantly. As those students leave, the money goes with them, and that creates hardship. So, working at an early college, one of the best parts about our program was our size. And we were small for a reason, and that was so that we could build relationships. So one of my solutions would be to reduce class size, K-12. Right now we have that initiative for K-2. It definitely is benefiting my daughter, but it's killing us at the high school level where I work. We have classrooms that sit, 35, 40 plus kids. When you have that many students, you possibly cannot form those strong relationships. And so I definitely think that's something that we need to consider is, if we can reduce class sizes, then that allows teachers to build stronger relationships, and having relationships is the base for anything in education. And then resources. I work in a school district that has a very large transient population and an increasing Hispanic population. My school actually went from 12% Hispanic to 16% Hispanic this year. We have an ESL teacher 1 period a day. And that's really a hindrance because we have right now 4 students who came in August. 3 of them came from Guatemala and spoke little to no English. And so it's really difficult to support those students. And then, I also thought, maybe how could we share resources better? If charter schools are public schools, and if, we have ESL students at both, how can we share those resources and I think, effectively use resources better? So I'm still up in the air about school vouchers, only because I just don't feel that it's fair to drain public schools. And so I don't know what the answer is, but I think if the right people put their heads together and use that money effectively and use our resources effectively, our ultimate goal of educating children can be met. All right, thanks guys.